There's a federal hiring revolution that's going to change the game for millions of government jobs. How will it affect you? Let's talk about the Chance to Compete Act. It's a new piece of legislation that's promising to make the federal hiring process faster, fairer, and more efficient. But will it? I'm going to explain how this new law will reshape the approach when applying to government jobs. Here's the situation. The federal government employs over 2 million people, yet nearly 100,000 positions are vacant at any given time. The average time to hire, it's around 100 days. So this gap, it highlights the need for a more efficient hiring process so we can get the right people in the right positions. Trying to get hired in the government right now, it feels like solving a Rubik's Cube while blindfolded. The current system relies heavily on self-assessments, where people are going through and marking how proficient they are at a skill. Well, this sounds easy, right? Well, not really. Studies have shown that about 80% of people that apply on usajobs.gov, they're marking that they're an expert. They're marking that they're highly proficient. And what ends up happening is the hiring manager gets a list of people who are supposedly experts, but they do not have the right skills. And when people ask me about how should they approach the questionnaire, it's really simple. Your competition, they're marking expert. Even though they might not have the same skill level you have, they know they're trying to be competitive. They're trying to take their shot, increase the probability however much that they can by marking expert. So I've always told people, if you don't feel comfortable marking expert, go to the next job announcement, because the chances are you're going to end up potentially disqualifying yourself. So the current system creates a lose-lose situation. The agency can't find the right talent. People who are qualified like you're lost in the shuffle. This is the reason why the Chance to Compete Act exists. So what's the deal with this new law? Well, it received bipartisan support. It passed Congress. The president should be signing it any day now, or he might have already signed it by the time this video goes out. And essentially, it's about testing the skills. Rather than asking you, are you an expert at Excel? They want to see you create a pivot table. Maybe manipulate some data in cells, columns, and rows. So some agencies have already been doing this. And this is what happens when you apply to a job announcement and then you receive that email that says, oh, by the way, you need to fill out 2 to 3 assessments. And yeah, this can add more time to it, but it is a check to make sure you actually do have the right skills. This will probably result in less people applying to a job unless they have the skills. And another downside of it is the time that it actually takes. How many people are willing to give up over an hour, 2 hours of their life just so that they can try to get that DEA position or that DOJ position? It's going to be less. The less time it takes to apply, the more people will apply to that position. All right, so the Chance to Compete Act introduces 3 big changes. The first one is self-assessments. So if the job entails technical skills, they're going to want to see your technical skills. If it's administrative, maybe you have to deal a lot with SharePoint. Do you know how to use SharePoint? Can you prove it? The assessment might be geared more towards your proficiency level at SharePoint or Salesforce or whatever it is. The second thing is subject matter experts. And this is something HR has used in the past, but it needs to be used more. If you're hiring for a technical position in the 1500 series, in the 2210 or the 0800, the engineers, you should have someone next to you who is proficient in that industry with those skills so they can adjudicate the person's experience. Because a regular HR specialist sitting at a desk, they don't know about mechanical engineering. 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, they don't know about engineering. They need an engineer there so they can look and say, oh yeah, Trevor does have the experience. He is highly qualified. And as it is right now, it's not happening, at least not to the extent that it should be. And this is one of the reasons a lot of people are better off leaving the acronyms and the terminology off of their resume, because you're directing your resume to an audience that has no idea. Now, the third thing is shared certificates. So qualified candidates that have been identified by one agency, they're able to be shared to other agencies, provided that individual is still looking for a job. Many times during a job announcement, it will prompt you, do you want us to share your certificate? So you can mark yes or no. I don't know why anyone would mark no. Why wouldn't you want more opportunities to be seen, to be assessed, to be selected? Mark, yes, you want them to share your resume with the other offices and with other agencies. So that's going to be done more in the future. All these things have one goal in mind, and that's to speed hiring up. Even by adding those assessments, which will discourage people from applying, they want to make the hiring process more efficient. If you look at 2024, agencies took an average of 90 to 120 days to fill a position. And if you do a quick comparison with the private sector, 30 days or less. That's what you're looking at with a lot of private companies, 30 days or less. So the federal government wants to make steps to get closer to that. I don't think it'll ever meet 30 days. That's crazy. But can we get closer? Can we do, I don't know, maybe 60, 65? Another source of pain is the communication aspect of it. Too many people are being ghosted every single day. How it works in federal hiring is you apply to that job announcement. Usually another 100 or two will also apply with you, depending on the job announcement, the location. Is it remote work? Let's say 200 people applied to that same job announcement that you thought was a really good fit for you. So how many people are going to get referred to the hiring manager? Let's say 20%. The agency will set the rule, but let's say, for this example, 20%. What is that? That's 40 people. 40 people are being referred. How many are going to get interviewed? Out of those 40, maybe 8 or 10. Let's say 10. So the other 30 are sitting on their hands. They're not being communicated with. They're not being told anything. So they're frustrated. Why is this? The hiring manager wasn't excited about interviewing them. They didn't seem like the best qualified to that hiring manager's perspective. What made them think that? Could be a whole host of reasons. It could be some sort of subconscious bias, or this individual had an MBA and this one didn't. There's a lot of speculation with that. But if we could ensure that the right people are actually applying and getting referred, that will make things a lot easier for the hiring manager. Now, let's not sugarcoat this. Implementing the Chance to Compete Act, that's not happening overnight. Nothing in the government is happening overnight. The timeline for this to be implemented is about 3 years. So federal agencies will have 3 years to fully adapt, and they'll need to invest the tools and training for their HR teams. But like we talked about earlier, this is already happening at a smaller scale. Look at agencies like the Department of Energy, the General Services Administration. Recently, the DOE, they did a study and they showed there was a 30% reduction in the time to hire. And when it comes to retention, the GSA, they saw retention improvement. Because one of the worst things to do is to onboard somebody and they leave 3-6 months later. You would be surprised how many people leave between that 3 to 5 month mark. And that's because it was a poor fit. Either you don't have the skills and now you feel like your head's underwater, or there's a personality disagreement with one of the supervisors, whatever it is. It could be a lot of different reasons, but people end up jumping ship and going to a different agency, or a lot of times they go back into the private sector and they say it wasn't worth it. So this is on both you and also the agency. The agency needs to make sure that they're writing those job announcements so you have a clear idea on the skills and what will be your daily responsibility. You can find that in the duty section. Not all duty sections are written the right way. So during the interview, what questions are you asking? Are you asking them what is expected of this position within the first 3 to 6 months? Are you asking them questions like that? Do you have an idea on who your supervisor will be? What will their personality be like? Does this individual seem, a little abrasive? You can tell that sometimes with mannerisms, with the type of words that they use. Do that for yourself. Make that assessment in the interview room. It's just not them interviewing you to see if you're a good fit for that organization. You're also interviewing, are you a good fit to be my supervisor for the next year or so? All right, so what can you do to prepare for this new era of federal hiring? Well, here are 4 tips. Number 1, showcase your skills. Update your resume and showcase those strong achievements. I've looked at close to 500 or over resumes in 2024, and about 80% of them were in poor condition, poor shape. And usually the same thing that people tell me time and time again is, hey, I paid someone to do this. I dropped, $500-$600. I went to my career center at my university. They said I'm good to go. I know it's not a resume issue. And then I look at their resume and we see responsibility, duty, generic, not quantified, generic. Get it out of here. It's not going to get you the results that you want. So you have to adjust your expectation or adjust the resume. Make the resume stronger. Second thing is practice for the skill assessments. You can look up questions, like if you have a math assessment coming up or a leadership assessment coming up, there are ways where you can practice, right? And here, worst case scenario, jump on ChatGPT or some other AI free website and tell it to ask you questions regarding that topic so you can start brushing up on it. Now, if you're looking for the exact answers to those questions, well, to give that to you would be illegal because I looked it up. There's a way where you can take the exam and you can save the answers, but within that quiz or exam or assessment, within there, it says that you may not distribute it. So can't help you out there. Next, network with SMEs. Connect with professionals in your industry. If you want to work at the Department of Labor, how many connections do you have over there? Whatever your background is, you went to Arkansas State University, you were in the military, you have a bachelor's degree in forestry or whatever it is, find somebody who has the same background that's in that agency, send them a LinkedIn connection request, ask a few questions, see if you can bounce some things off of them, and try to form a professional relationship because that can be incredibly beneficial in the future. And then nail the interview. I talked to this guy recently. He had 10 interviews last year. Do you know how many job offers he received from those 10 interviews? One. He had one job offer. He rejected it. The GS grade was too low. So why did he fail the other 9? And I say fail because he didn't get the job offer. It is because of a lack of preparation. There are too many people that do not prepare. And it's clear when you're interviewing them, you see them looking all around, you're hearing the ums, the uhs, looking at the floor, trying to figure out where the answer is, on the ceiling or something. You're not preparing enough. You need to sound more confident. You need to be able to tell us the successes that you had in the past. What did you do in the past? You saved money, you saved time, you made a process more efficient, you refined an SOP, or you produced a policy document that had, these effects towards the organization. What are your successes? Find them and then polish them up like a shoe. Shine the success stories up. And then rehearse them, and then get ready. Treat your interview serious. Because a lot of times that interview, that can make a huge difference in your life, right? Otherwise, why are you applying for those roles? These roles you're applying, they should be moving you up in life. They should be producing more income, producing more opportunities. So treat it that way. Remember, persistence is key throughout all of this. So let's say your job offer comes on the 50th application, but you only do 49. After 49 applications, you're like, you know what? I'm done. This is nonsense. It's broken. Who needs it? I'm going to go back to Walmart or Bed Bath & Beyond or wherever you were at. That's a way of thinking. And a lot of people, they adopt that mentality and that's fine for them. But if they were to apply one more time, or maybe just a couple of more times, or they just stayed consistent, they stayed persistent, they stayed hungry, they kept going after it, they kept refining, making those adjustments and keep applying towards a better future, ultimately. Those are the ones that get the job. It's not always the most qualified. Ideally speaking, it would be the most qualified, but it's not always the most qualified. It's the individual that stays persistent, that's consistent, that's constantly submitting those applications and making those adjustments. Those are the individuals that get better jobs. So when you're a GS11 and you look up and well, how did that guy get GS14? What's going on over here? That guy just kept going. A lot of times that's what it is. They just kept failing and they kept trying and they finally got it because they refused to give up. They didn't want to tell him a story on why it was okay to quit. If you are new to applying to government jobs, you probably have a lot of questions on your mind about the federal hiring process, about salaries, different type of government jobs. I did a live stream recently. I answered over a dozen questions. If you're interested in that, I want you to check this video out next. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.